All right, today we're jumping into a really provocative theory about who's actually pulling the strings on a global scale. This is all based on the work of Simon Dixon, and let me tell you, it's a wild ride through finance, war, and the idea of a hidden network that's more powerful than any government you can name.
So here's our roadmap. We're going to break this down into 4 parts. First, we'll get into the main claim, this idea of a global deep state. Then, we'll look at the financial blueprint they've allegedly been using for centuries. After that, we'll pinpoint who the enforcers of this system are. And finally, we'll explore why some people are pointing to Bitcoin as a potential escape hatch. You know, the whole theory really hangs on this one single idea, that there's a criminal network out there operating completely above the law, more powerful than any nation, and it's shaping world events just for its own profit. So what is this network, really? Well, the source material calls it a deep state, or basically a global mafia. The idea is that this group engineers wars and global crises just to make money. It's a structure you can't vote out, and according to this theory, even world leaders have to answer to it. And listen, this isn't just about what's happening now. The theory suggests a pattern of nonstop warfare that's been going on for over 100 years. It argues that this perpetual conflict isn't an accident. It's a feature, not a bug. But you gotta wonder, how is a system like that funded? Well, the answer, according to the source, is all in the financial blueprint. Okay, so how is all this control actually maintained? According to this thesis, it's not primarily with armies and tanks, but with money. It all comes back to a financial model that was set up more than 300 years ago, one that uses currency as its main weapon. The groundwork for this whole system was laid over centuries. It supposedly started way back in 1694 with the Bank of England, which figured out how to fund wars by issuing debt. That exact model was then copied in the US with the Federal Reserve in 1913. And the final piece of the puzzle? The Bretton Woods Agreement in 1944, which made the US dollar the world's reserve currency, mostly because the US was holding almost all the world's gold at Fort Knox. Now, this is the crucial point of the whole theory. Currencies are the weapons. The playbook is pretty simple. You intentionally inflate another country's currency until their money is basically worthless. This economic chaos makes them totally dependent, a tactic the source claims has been used over and over again to gain control. This setup created something people now call the dollar milkshake. Think about it, because the whole world needs dollars to trade, wealth is constantly being sucked into the US like a milkshake through a straw. It allows America to export its inflation, paper money, and in return, it imports real stuff, actual goods and resources. Then, those other countries have to take the dollars they earned and lend them right back to the US by buying its debt. So this is the alleged step-by-step playbook. It's a cycle of control. If a country doesn't want to play ball and have its currency destroyed, the theory claims the next move is to fund a colored revolution. A new, friendly government gets put in place, and what do? They fall right in line, buying US weapons and pricing all their valuable resources in dollars. Right, but a plan this big doesn't just happen on its own. It needs enforcers. And the source identifies a whole coalition of intelligence agencies, military contractors, and big financial players that allegedly carry out these operations on the ground. And here's where it gets really wild. The source makes a pretty shocking claim that the CIA was never really about national security. Its main job from day one was to protect corporate profits overseas. It's described as a partnership between spies, the mafia, and even former Nazi scientists from Operation Paperclip, all working to serve these corporate interests. Then you have these huge, publicly traded companies that literally profit from war. They need constant conflict to make money and to boost the GDP. All that money getting sucked into the dollar system gets funneled through the Pentagon and right into their pockets, creating this powerful, never-ending cycle of war for profit. And this is where it all comes full circle, connecting the enforcers back to the very top of the financial pyramid. The theory argues that since giant asset managers like BlackRock and Vanguard own the biggest chunks of these defense companies, they're the ones who ultimately benefit from and control this entire system. And just to give you a sense of the scale we're talking about here, the source claims there have been over 100 of these covert regime changes since the end of World War II. So these aren't just isolated incidents. It's presented as a consistent global pattern of intervention. These specific places aren't seen as random conflicts, but as strategic chess pieces. Each one, according to the theory, serves a purpose, like keeping Europe and Russia apart, or destabilizing the Middle East, all to prevent any rival power blocks from getting strong enough to challenge the system. Okay, so after hearing all that, you might feel a little hopeless. But the source doesn't just leave it there. It actually proposes a kind of peaceful resistance, one that's built on new technology.
The first major crack in this system, according to the theory, is this move toward de-dollarization. You've got economic alliances like the BRICS nations, that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, teaming up. And that is seen as a direct threat to the financial dominance we've been talking about.
And this brings us right to the heart of the proposed solution. You've got this head-to-head comparison. On one side, you have the traditional, centralized banking system that's based on debt. And on the other, you have Bitcoin, which is presented as this decentralized network that nobody controls, allowing anyone to just opt out.
This quote really nails it. The source doesn't frame Bitcoin as just another investment to make you rich inside the old system. It's framed as a political statement, an economic act of saying no thanks. It's a way to pull your money and therefore your power out of that established infrastructure. But that brings up a really good question. If Bitcoin is a boycott, why are all the big financial institutions suddenly jumping on board? Well, the theory claims it's an attempt to hijack the movement. By offering things like Bitcoin ETFs, they get you to give them your money so they can buy Bitcoin for you. It puts them back in control and takes away the main benefit of holding it yourself. It basically pulls the boycott right back into their system. So in the end, we're left with this really stark choice that the theory presents: centralized control on one side and decentralized freedom on the other. It frames this whole debate as something much bigger than just finance. It's about the future of power itself. And it kind of forces you to ask the question, is this the ultimate boycott? And what role are you going to choose to play?